I'm Jace Lacob, the host of Masterpiece Studio, and we are live with Endeavor star, director, and producer Shaun Evans, Endeavor Morse himself. Welcome, Shaun.
Hey everyone, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
We are live. I feel like I should ask you to hold up a copy of today's newspaper, maybe the Oxford Mail or something, just to show that we are live here. Because Endeavor was conceived as a Morse prequel series,
Yeah.
there was always going to be an expiration date at some point, unless you played the role for another 20 years or so. Why did it feel like the right time to end the series?
Why did it feel like the right time to end the series? Well, I think we didn't really have many intentions to go beyond the 33 that they made with Morse. So we always knew that the end was on the horizon. I think all of us, the team, myself and Russell, Roger and Damien, and the guys at ITV as well, felt that the conclusion that we'd reached wasn't the best that it could be. So we decided to do 3 more than the original. But it just felt like the right time. Sometimes you just know, right? And also you want to leave the party. You want to leave the party at the right time. You don't want to be the last person there, right? You don't leave when it's good and not when you've overstayed your welcome.
The curse of the Ninth Symphony is invoked here. I believe it was Schoenberg who said, "It seems the ninth is a limit." Is this a playful reminder that we're approaching the end of Endeavor, that we're in the Ninth Symphony and are standing close to the hereafter?
Yes, it is indeed. Well caught. That's what's beautiful about Russell's writing, Russell Lewis's writing. I think it's also detailed, and there's little Easter eggs there to be found if you look carefully enough. And embedded within this there's many little farewells and farewell motifs. So yes, indeed, it is.
As we just saw, Morse returns to Oxford in this episode, seemingly full of optimism after being treated for his alcoholism after Series 8. Does his optimism last here, and can it ever last in the darkness of Morse's world?
Or I think it doesn't last intact, but I think there's a small degree of optimism and hope, I think, which takes us right through to the end of the final episode. And then I hope as well that he has a degree of optimism about life beyond the stories that we tell. But this is, I would say, the pinnacle of his optimism at the beginning of Prelude.
After receiving his cure in Lyme Regis, he's abstaining from alcohol. He even turns down drinks with Dorothea Frazell, which she notes rather curiously. Does the cure then hold? Are the pink elephants of withdrawal vanished at least?
Oh no, alas, the cure does not hold. As soon as things begin to get emotionally tough, he finds his solace in a pint of real ale. So no, alas, no. But that's the character that we know and love, right?
Morse. You mentioned the 33 films that John Thaw had done, and the 36 that you've done. And by the time the curtain falls, that's 3 more episodes ultimately than John Thaw did. I mean, what do you take away from the experience of having played Endeavor Morse for more than a decade at this point?
What do I take away from it? Oh my goodness. So much. I mean, so much. Well, a decade's worth of experience and laughter and friendship. And
Open that message in a bottle, crack the bottle, take out that note, and look at it. I mean, in that sense, how did playing Morse help shape you as an actor, as a director, as a producer, and as a man?
oh wow, good question. God, that's a good question. That's a big question. How did it help shape me? Well, you know, in many, many, many ways, I think leading a company, I suppose, of actors for that amount of time has definitely been a huge learning curve. And to also be learning from actors like Roger, Anton, Abigail, Caroline, you know, and all of the extraordinary guest actors that we've had in as well. So that's been one element of, I suppose, from the acting point of view, and then from directing, I think, to be exposed in every scene to terrific directors, some of the best directors I think who are working in TV at the moment, and to see firsthand how they're conducting their day-to-day business on set, how they're getting the best out of people and how they're doing their work is sort of like a film school, you know. So to be there up close and personal with my little notebook, taking notes and making notes, it's kind of been an extraordinary apprenticeship from a directing point of view. And then as a man, I guess it's just helped me to grow in confidence. And also, you know, I just feel incredibly grateful that work's really important to me and that I've been blessed with the opportunity to be doing it at such an intense degree for such a consistent amount of time. You know, practice always makes you better, right? And so it's shaped me in so many ways. So it's been an extraordinary experience. I feel very blessed, actually.
You mentioned some of the best directors working in television, and that would include Mr. Shaun Evans himself as well.
Yeah, I wasn't
You
leading up to that.
no, I
I
am.
wasn't leading.
I mean, you
But
directed
yeah,
a few
you're right.
episodes
You
of
are right. I'm just
I
joking.
can say it. I can say it and you can accept it. You directed a few episodes of Casualty before you helmed Apollo in Series 6 of Endeavour. And then
Yeah,
you went on to direct the opening episodes for Series 7, Series 8, and Series 9.
yeah.
How did Endeavour inspire you to direct? And to borrow your phrasing, how did the production provide the perfect sort of film school for a new director?
Okay, good question. Well, I think how did it inspire me to direct? I think that had always been something that I've been interested in. You know, as a storyteller, you know, I don't want to be grand about it, but I think as an actor, I see myself more as a storyteller, and I was always interested in every part of it, every facet of it, really. And also, I never wanted to limit myself to be only being able to tell the stories that depend upon me and my very particular how I sort of present to the world. I always wanted to get beneath it and beyond that, and to be able to explore stories that I would never be casting, you know, to act. And plus, also, I think stories are incredibly important. The stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves, the stories that we tell one another. You know, I think it's stories are incredibly important, aren't they? And so, what was beautiful about the Endeavour experience was that it just provided a framework in order for me to be able um, to direct consistently, you know, and to be able to do that to make a sort of 90-minute film once a year. Technically, it provided sort of it was like a film school in that regard. And like I said earlier about sort of being able to watch the directors that are working and steal the bits that are useful whilst applying them to my own particular way of working. So yeah, does that answer your question? I don't know if it does.
It does. It does. I mean, last time
Okay,
I
good.
saw you, you had a camera with you, and you were sort of taking photos of everything.
Yeah.
And then I've loved to see sort of how you've developed as a director, particularly
Oh,
with the
thanks, man.
episode everyone just saw, Prelude. It's we're going to talk about it in a minute, but I thought it was a beautiful episode.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
we asked fans for questions as well. Kat M from Nevada asked, what will you miss most about playing Morse, and what aspect of Morse did you most or least connect with?
What will I miss most about playing Morse? You know what, um, but then with the caveat that we're all still incredibly close. I went to, you know, Roger's in a play at the moment, and Abigail and I speak frequently. James Bradshaw, who plays Max Devin, was in a play recently, which we all went as a team to go and see. So I will miss the people, but the people are still very much in my life. I think that's been one of the beauties of the experiences as well, is to have been able to create a family of sorts. But I suppose I'll miss the detail of the detail and the intellectual rigor of Russell Lewis's writing. Yeah, and also Damien Timmer as well, who works at who's an exec producer at Mammoth. I'll miss their intellectual rigor. I think, you know, when talking about story and their experience as makers of brilliant, top-notch TV. So that's that. In terms of the second part of the question was why am I, how am I most like Morse? Is that what it was?
Or what aspects of Morse did you most or least connect with?
I suppose least is easier. I think like the things that are similar are all sort of obvious, and I don't really want to. I try not to think too closely about them, but where we're different, I think, is where the interest, where the sort of the characterization, I suppose, for want of a better word, lies. And I suppose I'm very optimistic, and so I don't really relate to his nihilism or cynicism. And also, I'm a very outgoing person. I kind of chat to everyone, and so I wouldn't be someone who's in the corner quietly watching. You know, I'd be more boldly introducing myself to everyone. So we're not alike in that regard.
It is 1972. 7 years have passed in the world of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Was there any sort of trepidation about how these final 3 films would function to tie up the story and line up with Morse? Or was it a matter of just trusting in Russell Lewis to dot those I's and cross those T's, as it were?
Yeah, I mean, not trepidation per se. I mean, I think we all wanted, everyone on the team wanted to make it as satisfying an ending as possible, and also to give the audience something to, you know, a reward for staying with us for so long, and to finish on a real high that's sort of emotionally impactful, I suppose, rather than a high. And you know, it's not like it's taken us by surprise. The ending, we all knew that it was coming, and I've been having conversations since the beginning, really, about how it would end and what the end would look like, and you know, that's been an ongoing conversation for virtually all the time that we've been making the show. So it was less of a surprise and more of a trusting in Russell. But also, you know, I have to say that when I read the first draft of the final episode, I did think, wow, yeah, he's done a great job there. I found it quite emotional reading the final episode.
So I have to ask, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Given that there were those conversations pretty early on about how the show would end, without spoiling anything, is the ending ultimately different than what you had originally discussed?
No, I don't think it is. I think there's certain nuances which are slightly different, because of course we're a team making it. You know, it's not one person's voice, and so it's by committee, I guess. But no, it's still very much in the ballpark of what we discussed. Satisfyingly so, I think. Satisfyingly so, you know. It's a pretty interesting project. It's been interesting because it's so. Of course, it's very dear to me, but I think it's all, but likewise for Roger, for Abigail, for Russell, for Damien, for ITV. You know, for all the people who have made it, it's something that's, I think, very special and dear to us, because we've been making it for such a long period of time, and always encouraged one another to make it the best that it can be. You know, so we all wanted our own particular stamp on how it ended, and I do think we have harmoniously achieved that.
Knowing then that the end was coming, that these would be the final 3 Endeavour films, did going into production on Series 9 feel different? That each scene, in a way, would be leading you closer and closer to that final shot?
Yeah, for sure. But you know, it felt like a celebration, really, to be honest. You know, that beautiful thing of we saying when it would end, rather than it no longer being popular or it being cancelled or whatever. You know, we were sort of the masters of our own destiny there in terms of the story, and so it felt like a celebration that we've gone that far, and also knowledge that, you know what, this is the last time we might be doing this particular scene with this particular person. That in itself is a celebratory thing, but also I think as well, because we created it, I think we all felt emboldened to really push it and to make it the best that it can be for ourselves as well as for anyone else, so that we've all got something that we're incredibly proud of. So yes, it did feel precious, but in a really, not in a sad way, in a really good and emboldening way, I suppose.
On a personal level, yeah. I mean, I would
Yeah.
imagine so.
Mm.
Jody K from Florida asks, how did you approach playing the role of a younger version of an established character? Did you have a plan for how your character would evolve towards his older self?
I didn't have a plan when it first began. I hadn't seen any of John Thor's TV version of it, so I just read the books. Well, I'd read one or two of the books, and then when the job came my way, I read all of them, and then I was intrigued, and I had a lot of questions about how we could take someone in his mid-20s to the person that we know in his early 50s or whatever. I was intrigued and I had many questions about it, but no answers. And so I think slowly, it began to emerge, for me at least. But I didn't come in with a great master plan of how we would do it or how I would do it. I just thought, try and make each scene as truthful and as interesting for me and for the character as possible.
We come now to talk about Prelude, which
Mm-hmm.
you directed beautifully. It's
Thank
full
you.
of murder and music and menace. You're working with a full orchestra here.
Mm-hmm.
Each of these Endeavor films offers its own unique challenges, but
Mm-hmm.
what challenges did Prelude offer in terms of directing?
What challenge the Prelude offer in terms of directing? Good question. Well, the orchestra, actually, now that you've mentioned it, because music is such an integral part of the show and part of this character's life and inner life, the music is a huge. We wanted to get that right and make it the absolute best that it can be. And so Matt composed some music for it. And then we got an orchestra, and the actors who were part of the orchestra, we wanted to see people who would also had a degree of proficiency with the violin or with the instruments that they were playing. And so I thought, oh, that's going to be a challenge. I wonder if we can get actors who are really brilliant and also, grade 8 violin. Unfortunately, we did Susie Paris, who has been, Susie Paris, who's the casting director of Endeavour since the beginning, is kind of an unsung hero on this, I believe. She's done magnificent work pulling together extraordinary, some of the best actors working in the UK at the moment, and consistently she's done that in every single episode, and she did it again with this. And so we fortunately managed to populate the orchestra with extraordinary actors who are also extraordinary musicians. So what was a challenge also became a really interesting process. Yeah.
A challenge to an opportunity, basically.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was looking for, Jace. That's much better.
The first shot of Morse this season is an interesting one. We see a crossword puzzle, then we see Morse doing it sitting alone in Christchurch Meadow against the backdrop of Oxford. And he seems very separate, isolated. What were you looking to say about Morse as a character with this shot at the start of series 9?
Well, two things actually. Exactly that he is isolated and separate, but also he is completely in his world. Like, there's no to and fro anymore. There's no maybe I'll retire, maybe I'll go and do this. There's no on a bus on his way somewhere. I wanted him to be completely in his universe, and that seems the most fitting place to do it.
I mean, that sense of isolation, I think, is echoed elsewhere in the episode. There's that shot of Morse striding through the arcade before he questions the orchestra members, and we get that series of arches that sort of dwarf the solitary Morse. As a director, do you think in terms of motif?
Oh, do I think in terms of motif? I think in terms of pictures, I guess, and also I think in terms of juxtaposition. So I think one image is only powerful when placed against another image, or as in the case of the one that you've just spoken about, those magnificent arches. I thought it was sort of a subconscious feeling, really, but as soon as I saw it, I thought, yeah, that's right. Someone who's got a huge intellectual life above him, which is kind of glorious, above his head, because of his great intellect. There's something about that which kind of makes sense to me. But also, you know, trying to isolate him in the frame as much as possible to try and keep him on his own, keep him separate from the other actors. It's twofold, really. It's a way, I think, of saying this is the person who's taken us through the story, and so the audience completely identify the subject, you know, with this character. But it is also a way of saying, in this particular case, he is at his most alone now. He is at his most isolated, or certainly will be by the end of it. And that is, again, going back to what I was saying about doing the crossword in Christchurch Meadow. He's not only in his physical place, but I wanted him to feel completely in his emotional place as well. That sounds very highfalutin, doesn't it? But yeah,
No, mission accomplished.
That was the intention.
Endeavour and Thursday have had such a complex dynamic over the course of these 9 series, one that has been tested time and time again. They kind of found something that was maybe akin to a father-son bond, a mentor-student bond. I mean, what does Morse think of Thursday, and does that bond extend beyond their working relationship at this point?
Oh, for sure, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's all so rich and complex. Like I say, being able to tell a story for such a long period of time, and the detail, the granular detail of Russell's writing, but also of Colin Dexter's as well. Like in the books, Morse has a very fractious relationship with his own father, who left his mother, whose mother then died of cancer, and then Endeavour was pulled from that environment to go and live with his dad and stepmom, with disastrous results. And then went to go to Oxford, meandered around for a few years, and then landed as a detective in Oxford with this ready-made father figure, who not only shows him how to be a better policeman to some degree, but also I think provides the first real role model of how to be a man, how to be a good man, how to be a family man. At least that is what Endeavour is putting on him, I think. That's what Endeavour's putting on him, because I think by the end he's completely disappointed in what. Spoiler.
There is an awkwardness in the clip that we saw between these two men. I mean, Morse invites Thursday to grab lunch, and he declines, saying he's just come from the pub with Strange. Morse is really thrown by that, almost emotionally so. What does he make of the distance that has formed between him and Thursday here?
What does Endeavour make of the distance? In that moment, I think he's... yeah, I mean, I think slightly disappointed, because I guess he's come back and because if you think the last time we saw them, Thursday says to him at the end of season 8, go and sort yourself out. And I think Endeavour comes back and wants to show him and to extend the hand of friendship and say, I've put that behind me now. Let's go and have lunch, and I won't have a pint. It's that opportunity. And also I think perhaps maybe his spidey senses are tingling, that he's like, that's strange that Thursday's being so aloof.
Sandy,
you want to have lunch with me?
Sandy M from Pennsylvania asks, do you have a favorite filming location? If so, why?
Oh, that's a good one. Do I have a favorite? I have a couple, actually. So well, Oxford itself, I absolutely love. I actually love the place. The architecture is just magnificent, and the atmosphere is magnificent. I also loved filming in Venice. Similar, everywhere you look, it's kind of beautiful. But I suppose one of the colleges which was my favourite was St. Cat's. I love architecture, so it's designed, I think, by Mies van der Rohe, and it's everything about it is just so well thought out and well put together, down to the cutlery, the carpets, the chairs, and it was just a delight to be filming in a place which is so well. It wouldn't be everyone's cup of tea, but to be in a place that is so well considered in every single detail was one of my favorite. I can't remember the title of what film that was, what episode that was, but yeah, that was one of my favorites.
Christopher Wren is kind of getting uppity in his grave now.
Yeah, I'm
Having
sure. Yeah, listen,
you
he
said that
gets
about Ms.
enough
Van der
praise.
Rohe.
He gets enough accolades.
There's a visible tension between Morse and orchestra guest soloist Christina Poole in Prelude. Might there be a romance in Morse's near future? Is this another in a long line of near misses in Morse's love life?
I think potentially. I don't know. I often think, sorry, digressing somewhat, in life, we're continually presented with the same problem until we prove that we've learned the lesson, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, we keep calling the same lesson to ourselves in many ways until we're like, oh, actually, I'm going to do that a different way now. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like it's the same with fiction as well. And I feel like it's the same in this way. It keeps in some way calling the wrong person to him, who's connecting in some way to the crime in a sort of way. And it's just not going to work out. So the sooner he learns that lesson, the better, I think. That doesn't answer your question at all, Jace. I'm just ruminating.
But very philosophical, and
Thanks
I
very much.
agree.
Thanks very much.
Jenny S. from Maryland asks, which episode or scene was the most challenging for you emotionally, and how did you see it through?
Which episode seems the most challenging emotionally? I think she's probably asking. I can remember. I think she's probably asking, like, given that it was the end, did it feel emotionally charged in that way? And in a funny way, I think we all wanted the work to be as strong as possible. So I don't think, because I'm a big believer in keeping the drama on the screen, you know, not to feel however sad or elated or whatever I may feel about the work that we're doing that day. I think it's important to do the work. You know, that's the most important thing. So yeah, it didn't really feel emotionally charged, if that makes any sense.
It does make sense. I mean, unrelated, Endeavour harks back to a seemingly simpler time, one that's devoid of social media and mobiles. I mean, why do you believe the show struck such a chord with its devoted fans?
Good question. I think part of what you said is true. A part of the simplicity, the harking back to simpler times. I think that's an element certainly in it. But I think it's something. It's just, if I may say so, good stories well told. I think, you know, clearly defined characters that are on an interesting emotional journey. Yeah, I don't know. It's difficult to pick that apart. I think it's a combination of things. What do you think?
I mean, I think that's definitely part of it. I think it's the sort of smartness of the writing. I think it's Mr. Shaun Evans as Endeavour Morse, and the fantastic. He's good. The performance of the entire cast, I think, it's a great ensemble. I think it's Oxford. I think it's a weird ephemeral thing that has made it just as beloved as it is. It's so many different things.
I also think the atmosphere of melancholy is really important. The atmosphere. I mean, the things that I like either to read or photographs or films or TV. The atmosphere of melancholy I find really moving and intoxicating, and I think we've tried to inject as much of that into this as possible. So maybe that's an element of it too.
It is a very happy show.
It's a happy show.
Yeah, it is not happy. It is, but
it's happy.
The melancholy,
I think,
is
it's happy on the making. But I think that
it's a very melancholic. I think that's precisely the right word. for the show. Uh, I'm not going to put the Thames Valley Police on you, I swear, but I am curious. Did you take anything from the set with you, a prop or a memento to commemorate your time as Morse?
Just the Jag. Just the Jag. I'm
Just the
joking.
Jag.
I'm joking. Can you imagine? Yeah, it's parked outside. Um, no, what did I take? I didn't. Well, actually, no, I did. I took I costumes really important for me when I'm working. I think getting the right costume can really help in so many ways. And I remember when we first started the job, Jesus, a decade ago now. I was looking for the perfect suit, trawling around secondhand stores and couldn't find them. I was there for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, and then went to this final vintage store. And again, was going through all the rails, looking at the suits, and nothing was quite right. I don't know specifically what I was looking for, but nothing was quite right. And then at the end, a suit fell off the end of the rail. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. So, and then I got it and tried it on and was like, oh, yeah, this is it. This is the one. It wasn't this one, but it was him. And I thought, that's the perfect suit. So then every season I tried to get, and then I wore it till it was threadbare. And they got one made in exactly the same. And so I have that.
That is the
I mean,
perfect
what's someone else going to do with it, right? I mean, what's anyone else going to do with it? It's only going to get destroyed. And plus, I like it hanging in my wardrobe. Don't know what I'm going to do with it, but
Remember
I
it.
should have worn for this interview.
You should, yeah, you should put that on.
Can you imagine? Let it go, Shaun. It's finished.
It's done. It's done. This is rather sadly the final series of Endeavour. The bodies are piling up. The goodbyes are coming fast. How would you describe Series 9 in a single word?
I think it's magnificent. I think it's magnificent. Honestly, I really do. I think it's like, I think it's really good. I think it's really good.
Shaun Evans, thank you so very much. The magnificent final season of Endeavour begins Sunday, June 18th, 2023 at 9 p.m. Eastern on Masterpiece on PBS. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Jace. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.